Hey everyone, this is Daniel Litwin, the voice of B2B, and welcome to another episode of Get Your Fix, a Vixxo podcast. Again, I'm your host, Daniel Litwin, and thank you so much for joining us on another episode of Vixxo's podcast. We appreciate you joining us as we continue some conversations around Vixxo's offerings and value proposition, as well as a better understanding some of the needs that are affecting OEMs today and understanding how those two worlds come together. So as we continue today's conversations, make sure that you're subscribing to our podcast on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Just look up Get Your Fix, hit that subscribe button, and you'll have a full catalog of previous conversations, as well as notifications when we drop new ones. Make sure you're also going to our website, Vixxo.com, Vixxo.com, for more information on some of the things we'll be breaking down today, but also for more Vixxo content, including episodes from the podcast, videos, articles, and more. So let's go ahead and jump into the main course today. Like I said, on the podcast, we're continuing a series of shorter, snappier interviews on what we like to call the Vixxo basics for manufacturers, really just breaking down the core tenets of why a third-party installation partner is worth your time, your investment, and your professional energy as an OEM. At Vixxo today, we really believe that today's manufacturing installation challenges, and really just challenges that hit OEMs on all levels, are becoming so unmanageable for internal teams that bringing on a third-party partner like Vixxo is not just a cherry on top or a differentiator nowadays, but it's really becoming a necessity. So we're hoping to communicate not only why Vixxo can help fill that need, but also what those challenges are for OEMs today, how they're manifesting in practice, and why a Vixxo helping hand can step in to be part of the solution, and how that helping hand also works in practice. So this time with our conversation, we're breaking down the big picture planning that comes along with an installation partnership with Vixxo. So really what we're doing is breaking down why this comes not only at a high level with strategic focus, but also at the most granular level with proactive and reactive use of data. So we're getting the macro and the micro. So I'd like to welcome our guest for the conversation today. Joining us for another interview is Mr. Ryan Baumgartner. He's Vice President of Projects and Partner Development at Vixxo. Ryan, good to have you back on for number 3. How you doing?
Doing well. Thanks for having me, Daniel.
Yeah, always a pleasure getting to chat. Thank you again for joining us again in the studio. So again, like we said, we're going to be breaking down the macro value as well as the micro value of that Vixxo partnership, and understanding how they work together, how that big picture strategy as well as granular data make up a holistic partnership and strategy. So let's go ahead and jump in. I want to start here. What would you say equipment manufacturers need to have a clear vision and understanding of to successfully build out strategic focus around their facilities work, like installations, for example? What do they really need to have figured out?
Yeah, I think they need to understand their end game, right? So everybody has a pipeline, everybody has a growth initiative. How is that going to be facilitated, not just when you're starting to roll out new products, but when you mature and when your products are starting to really, really catch fire and go into some of these larger portfolios? So strategically understanding what your end game is will help you build and partner with somebody to fully facilitate what it is that you're trying to do as an organization. And when you get into some of the lower levels, our organization likes to drive preparedness to make sure that you don't overlook something that could cause a project rollout issue. But the client success and their expectations, really mapping that out at a very, very low detail to make sure that when you do start to roll out with that project, it's smooth, it hits the client's expectations, and there's no thrash involved. Because the faster you get it rolled out, the better it is, the faster you have cash coming in.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Everybody wins.
Exactly. Win, 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 speed, speed, speed. I don't want to sound patronizing, obviously, when I pose these questions, because I think it'd be silly to assume that manufacturers don't already have some kind of strategic focus around, their operations. But I think maybe the breadth of that focus and sort of what needs to be included, as well as how to maximize each moving part, is where there starts to be some disconnect, or maybe just things aren't being maximized, right? So could you give us the why? Why are we seeing some of these strategic focus issues in the industry, or where are you seeing that manifest most?
Yeah, I think, well, first and foremost, I think there's a lot of products and a lot of focus on innovating these occupied spaces.
Yeah.
So with that demand coming, like there's just such accelerated growth in the manufacturing space right now, just because there's such a high level of focus on a customer experience, which a lot of those things drive. So that is creating tremendous growth in the industry, and it's frankly scalability is one of the hardest things for you to implement and invest in and find a really good trusted partner. So I think those components, when it comes to the industry right now, they really have a magnifying glass on them. So, and you don't just want a partner that can actually scale with you and, roll your products out. You want somebody who's already in the space and already dealing with facility operators. They understand the components that need to happen. They understand what potential problems might exist or come up. Yeah. So you can be proactive about that, which your end user clients love. They don't like to come to you with problems and then wait for weeks for solutions. So we've been able to offer, an end-to-end solution that not only looks at like long-term growth and strategy, but it actually gets all the way down to the level of each project, each client, because expectations vary between each client. So really building the success profile, building the client expectations, and then training our field personnel around those expectations. Quick example.
Yes, please.
If you do an installation in the food industry, you can't do it while somebody's eating in the store. So right. How do you coordinate and facilitate thousands of locations to be done after work, after hours? What's the shape of the store need to be when you come in the next morning, right? Is the store operator even know that the new product is in? So having the data, having the tools, having the documentation at a very low level and setting that up to the client's expectations, that's when you win.
Right. Yeah, I agree. Setting expectations, that's really key. So can you expand on some of your strategies there then? How do you work with your manufacturers to build a sustainable strategy for managing their facilities and really just their facility installations, hardware, their responsibilities really at scale? And sustainable being the key word there. How do you help them build that strategy in a way that is that they can replicate and that they can continue to use at scale?
Yeah, so I think partnerships, they're only as good as the tools and the insights that you can provide back to not only the manufacturing partner that you're partnering with, but all the way down to the client. So for example, how do they know that your product's being installed correctly every single time? Right? So pre-pictures, post-pictures, do you have documentation sign-off? Is there a checklist? Was everything tested? Is there a maintenance component to it, right? We have plenty of manufacturers who they put products in and they need to be maintained every quarter. So your job is never done, right? Just getting the installation in is one thing, but now are you consistently keeping up with their preventative maintenance? Are you creating a good life cycle of this product and getting ROI for your end customer? There's just so much granularity and so much complexity and so much planning for it. It's really about the tools and then the people that you utilize. Manufacturers, at the end of the day, they want to concentrate on their products. They want to concentrate on research and development. Right. They don't want to be going back and forth with their client about a bad installation, right? That's not even about the product. That's about just the product going in. So we do a lot of preparation and we have a lot of tools to create visibility that allows the customer to feel comfortable and allows the manufacturer to know, hey, things are intact. And this project's running really well.
Right. Okay, so now playing off of those tools and the insights you get from the tools, that naturally leads to data becoming incredibly valuable and informing those decisions. So the micro informs the macro and the other way around. So can you break that down for us? Why, or actually, no, let me rephrase that. What data specifically is becoming most valuable for crafting that strategy today? Are there specific data sets or kinds of tools that are becoming really useful, and give us the why?
Yeah, I think we've talked about this plenty through this series, is the predictability aspect.
Right.
So everything that we do, whether it's, from the date of the installation, the complexities and components involved in the installation, the skill set of the tradesperson who is doing the installation, all of that data is tracked in our tools. So imagine a salesperson or a client success person or even a C-level person talking to a major brand about a large rollout. If you have the ability to say, oh, you have how many locations? Yeah, we would, it'd be about this much product. Oh, and we generally, over time, we've been hitting a 6-month rollout schedule.
Right. So
you being able to go in and have a predictive nature and actually be able to back that up because you have data, you can show them how long a rollout will take. You can show them the documentation and the sign out. All of those components are so valuable when you go out. And then if there's like a survey component that you have to do, right, prior to doing an install, how do you do 5,000 surveys, have all the data, be able to create that into some type of proposal back to them?
Right.
We have tools that we build out, very, very specific data and criteria that you need in order to get somebody to sign off on, whether it's a pilot, a full-scale rollout. All of that stuff is done. It's all built. It's very flexible, right? So each client may have different criteria, but we're able to flex to their needs and create a really quick turnaround and a really fast process to get the job done.
Now, are there any specific challenges that come from trying to acquire that data, analyze it, and then make actionable decisions around it? And what would you say those core challenges are, and how does Vixxo approach maneuvering those?
The core challenge is not having the tools. One.
Right.
Yeah, so besides not having the tools, I think the biggest challenge when you do large rollouts are you're using so many different people, right? So doing a rollout of 5,000 locations, you could have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of different companies installing these things for you. So how do you create consistency? If you don't have the tools, if you don't have the preparation, if you're not getting on the phone with your installers and walking them through the components, if you're not rigorously following up with them, if you're not making them document every component of that installation, you're putting your product and you're putting your relationship with your customer at risk.
Right.
So who has time for that? Right? You're focusing on manufacturing your products, you're focusing on selling those products, you have all these internal focuses. Who's going to get on the phone with hundreds of service providers and technicians to train them? Who's going to follow up with them? So that's our core competency, right? We take the thrash away. We do it at probably a lower cost because of our buying power in those components. And then all the tools, all the data, everything to build up our capabilities, that's already installed, day one. So we take the worry out of it. We let you focus on what you're great at, which is building innovative products, while we handle all of the logistics and the installation and all those components and tools and documentation you need for your customer success.
Love it. Love it. Yeah, it's truly a partnership, Yeah. So last thing that I want to toss your way is trying to ground some of this around a specific example. So do you have any more grounded examples of how this kind of collaborative relationship can actually play out in practice at that macro and micro level of synergy? And maybe you offer a specific example of a client who's tried to do this at scale, like you said, maneuvering hundreds of locations and balancing that strategic focus with the right data to inform it.
Yeah, so just as a client example, and we run into this a lot. Usually when somebody's looking for our services, it's because a catastrophe has happened. One of your clients is just in a pause with the installation or rollout.
Right.
So, hey, what do? We tried to do 100 of these locations. It was a complete disaster. It's multiple skill sets. Couldn't get the store managers to schedule for us. We need your help. We go in. We can create a simulation to help you understand what does a full rollout look like, what's the type of data you need to fully do that, whether it's plans for a location, whether it's the time of day you need the installation, whether it's multiple. We have a lot of manufacturers that it takes multiple skill sets like electrical and plumbing to put one thing in. So now you have to schedule 2 different types of people. You have to schedule with the store manager. Can people be around? Can it be store open hours? So there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of things that you have to think through at a micro level at a given location,
right.
And then try and scale that against 5,000, 2,000, 10,000 locations in a very quick manner. So the recommendation is, right, we look at kind of a product and what are the complexities around installing it, and then we build a program out, which is what are the questions and the data that we need to effectively put that in at one shot, because if somebody goes back and has to do multiple tasks at given times, that increases your cost. Right. You want to go one time, you want to get it in as fast as possible, you want to do it right, consistently, quality. And you can't do that without a lot of preparation and a lot of data and a lot of informed building of the plan. So that to me, I mean, the recommendation is to just sit down, have that discussion, and challenge us. How would you guys do it, Vixxo? What data would you ask for? And with most of our partners, we actually pull all of that together, right, for their customers.
Right.
We'll say, hey, here's all the components we need. Here's why it's helpful, right? You don't want to cause work for your customer, but if you do enough preparation and you tell them why you're doing it, at the end of the day, they're really appreciative of the granularity that you get into.
And that granularity is really important for today's OEM needs. So, I think emphasizing that as not just sort of an addition, like, hey, we're going to get granular for you, and that's cool and extra. No, I mean, the granularity is essential. It's an essential piece of informing that strategic focus and of really making sure that high quality execution is felt across all departments. You got to get down to the minutia. So It's always great to hear that Vixxo prioritizes that and makes it part of its core business model. So I think on that point, that does it for our conversation today. So thank you again to our guest, Ryan Baumgartner, Vice President of Projects and Partner Development here at Vixxo. Always a pleasure again to chat, Ryan. And before we wrap up completely, if folks want to find out more about Vixxo's approach here to that macro-micro synergy, or if they just want to get in touch, learn a little bit more in general, how can they do so?
Yeah, so just go to Vixxo.com. We have OEM manufacturing capabilities page you can go to. All my information's on there. Happy to have a discussion with you, kind of educate you on our process, how it's been valuable for others, and how it could potentially, help your organization scale.
I love it. All right, Ryan Baumgartner, thank you so much for the interview. It's been great. And thank you everyone for joining us on another episode of Get Your Fix, a Vixxo podcast. If you like what you heard and saw and want to listen to some previous episodes or just learn more about the company, you can go to our website, like Ryan said, Vixxo.com, Vixxo.com, and make sure you're subscribing to the podcast as well on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. I'm your host, Daniel Litwin, the voice of B2B, and we'll catch you next time on another episode of Get Your Fix.